So in this video, I'm going to explain the right way to think and how some people like my father are thinking in the wrong way, putting people in danger. Well, it's not just my father, there's lots of people doing this. Okay, we're going to use global warming as a topic. My father believes that global warming is a lie. It's just some made up story by the Democrats. Okay? Let's not pick a side. Let's do both sides. Okay. Let's say the oil companies are telling the truth and all these environmentalists are lying. Who benefits if the oil companies really aren't destroying the earth with all this CO2? The oil companies benefit. The oil companies make lots more money. If they keep global warming out of the public's eye, the oil companies make shitloads more money. Okay, so if we go with my father's statement that global warming is just a lie, the oil companies make more money. Okay, let's try the other side of this. The environmentalists say that the world is going to be destroyed by global warming, that there's going to be lots more forest fires, there's going to be more hurricanes, more floods, you're going to see the temperature rise. Okay, so what happens if we ignore global warming? Well, all our children lose their future. Yes, you're giving away your children's future. So if global warming is real, and you're a global warming denier, you're trading your kid's future. Okay, let's say that you are somebody who's for global warming. You're costing the oil company some money. Now, which side do you want to be on, right or wrong? Let's say you really don't know. Would you rather be on the side that's saving your children's future or being on the side that makes a bunch of oil companies more money? Even if global warming is a lie, I'm still going to go with it because I can't know for sure. It sure looks like global warming is real. We're seeing forest fires. We're seeing more hurricanes. The temperature is rising. The whole world is falling apart as temperatures and floods happen. So it looks like it's real. But even if global warming is just a myth, I still want to be on the side protecting my children's future. Now let's talk about the last generation. My father's generation, he's 89. Why are all these Republicans and these old people willing to be on the oil company side? Because they don't care about their children's future. They don't want to take responsibility for their own actions. They don't want to clean up a footprint. They don't want to have to recycle. They don't want to have to worry if the decisions they're making is going to destroy their children's future. So if they deny global warming, they can make the oil companies money and sound like there's nothing, no problem. We're not doing anything wrong here. My generation's perfect. And that's the problem. They don't want to believe the Democrats. That's fine. You don't have to believe the Democrats. You don't have to believe the scientists. You don't got to believe the experts. But what you do got to do is think about your children's future. Think about this. Back before there was Social Security retirement, they tried to push for this country to have Social Security retirement. This is around the 40s and 50s. A bunch of people said if we give out retirement, we would turn into a communist country. We would turn socialist. If we give out Social Security to the elderly, then we're no better than the next socialist country. Now, if that generation believed that bullshit, who would have benefited? All the companies, all the businesses. And our elderly parents would be struggling today. So what decision was made? They made a decision best for the public. Okay, how about workers' wages? If we never rose and make worker rights, then the workers would have missed out and all the companies would have made more money. Now, how are my generation doing? In the 1930s, they made worker rights. In the 1940s, World War II was coming to an end. By 1950, we were printing the money. We reestablished the whole government. We were running the world. And now we had the 40-hour work week that if you worked 40 hours, you could actually pay your bills and save money for college. Okay, was there opportunities? You better believe there was college opportunities everywhere. They started printing college degrees by the 60s. Okay, now why was that so easy for the people who were trying to work and live in the 50s and 60s? Why did they have an easier time than my generation. My generation got to work sometimes 60, 80 hours just to make ends meet. We got a father working 2 jobs, a mother working 1 job, and all they live in is an apartment and they still barely make ends meet. Was this the case after World War II during the 50s and 60s? No. Well, why is it getting worse and worse for our children? Why are our children losing more and more rights? Why? Is it because women got their rights? Is it because black people are in the workforce? Is it because of immigrants? No. It's because we're allowing the wealthy in this country to take over our government, and we don't think about our children's future. A lot of people I see over the age of 50 and 60 seem to be more interested in spending money on a cruise boat, spending taxpayer dollars, their Social Security, and giving it to another country where it never stays in this country. It goes to Belize, and there's no tax dollars at all going to America. So they don't think about what they're doing. All they care about is I'm on a cruise, I'm having a good time, and I'm drunk. I'm in Hawaii, I'm having fun, now I'm back. That's all they care about. They don't care about global warming. They don't care about how their children might struggle and the world might come. They don't worry about their children going to war. They don't worry about those things. What did my father worry about when it was time for him to fight for this country? How to get out of it. How do I get out of it? I'll just join the Coast Guard. I'll get married. I'll move to Canada. Those are the common ones. Those are people who are more worried about themselves than their children's future. But see, the baby boomer generation is very different than the generation coming out now in the 2000s. The generation now is hooked on computers, hooked on social media, and they're all environmentalists. Mushrooms are coming back, hippies are coming back. They're all about that. But they also have 2 options. You either can work 2 to 3 jobs and barely make ends meet, or a lot of them just are lazy and they don't want to work at all. But the trick is they're really not lazy, a lot of these people I see. They just either smoke weed and work ridiculous hours more than 60, and they're just trying to cause, they can't live like that. I have a coworker that works 2 jobs, Market Basket and a gas station, and she still doesn't have a place to live. She has to couch surf because there are so little apartments available if you're working 2 jobs. Yes, 2 jobs isn't even enough to get you an apartment in Rochester. The wait list is forever. Plus, a lot of them are deadly to begin with. Yeah, they haven't been maintained in 15, 20 years. Mold and water's coming in like crazy. Well, why is that? Why is my generation, their landlords, allowed to get away with this stuff? If my father was renting an apartment in the 70s, and he was paying full rent, and there was a waterfall coming in 3 windows when the windows were closed, and they weren't allowing you to fix it, and it was the landlord's responsibility to fix, would it stay there for another 20 years with water coming in the walls in the building? I mean, big waterfalls coming down. No, the landlord would replace the framing. But why does my generation do this? Because we have a broken system. The last generations before me broke the system and allowed things to go crazy because they were greedy. Now we have a world on fire, war coming. The minimum wage is not paying anybody. People are working 2 to 3 jobs just to survive. And then you got people like me who can't get the medical care they need because they had parents that like to try to use their child to get more money out of the state. Oh yeah, let's just make up a lot of stories at the doctors and then the state will give us Social Security. And our son doesn't need clothing. He doesn't need to pay his rent. He doesn't need any of that. We need a bigger house. We need a vacation. So we'll use that at the expense of our son. See, back in the 1930s, people were more interested in giving their children a better life than their own. The purpose of being a parent is to make your child better than you are. If you're trying to suck off your child, and if you're destroying his future at your own gain and his expense, oh my God, you need a kick in the nuts. And I see a lot of people today that need a fucking kick in the nuts. Absolutely. I mean, if somebody is working 65, 70 hours during COVID, he's catching the flu, he's having seizures on the side of the road, and he's still forced to work at that time, and he does it all through COVID, and he's the only store open in Dover and Somersworth and in Rochester that's selling gasoline and propane, keeping the whole town moving. You would think that they would have a little more respect for that individual. Instead, these essential workers can work 60 hours and still have to live in their car. I don't remember my father telling me how he worked more than 60 hours and he still didn't have enough money for an apartment and there were no apartments for him. This is a new age problem. So my father is 89. He was born in 1935. His parents worked very hard. A lot of people, the generation before him, worked to give him a better future. Now, what has he done to give his children and the next generation a better future? So the people in the 20s, the 30s, and the 40s wanted to give a better future to the next generation. Then the people in the 50s and the 60s wanted that same thing. But then, by the time the 60s were over, you had a lot of these jerks just trying to suck and scam their way in. You had corporations taking advantage. You had people starting to buy their way into the government. And what did the people who were in their 30s during the 70s do about it? Nothing. They tried to work their way up to become millionaires at the expense of other people. They said, look at those stupid people protesting. They're wasting their time. They could be rich like me. A bunch of stuff like that was going on. Now we live in a world in 1924 where there's people like me who had a mother with Munchausen syndrome that are crippled, can't get health care, not allowed to work even though they have a job, not allowed to use a shelter, not allowed to live. Why? Because the way we fucked it up. Back in my father's generation, if you wanted to keep your hands warm, you just made a fire in a trash can in New York City and you put your hands over that. You do it today, you're arrested for arson. Back in my father's day, in the 1950s and 60s, you could camp out in parks and stuff like that, and you wouldn't be arrested. Yup, public land was able to be used. You could hop on trains to get around if you didn't drive. You could use trains to get around. If you wanted a job, you just had to ask for it. You didn't have to go online, give a background check, and give your medical history or you weren't allowed to work. But my generation, if we have a fucked up medical history, we're not allowed to work. We also require a computer for everything. Back in my father's generation, if you were at the bottom, all you had to do was work. Today, you need to get a computer, you need to have transportation, you need to have a mailing address, you need a medical history. None of that was required back then. So they're making things worse and worse and worse and worse. And then they're trying to run off into the sunset, sucking off the system, spending the taxpayer dollars that they're given on cruises that go to other countries. We're failing. Let's think of Nixon. He made a deal and he couldn't even keep his word. When it came time to pay France the gold that we owed, Nixon figured he would just pull a nice little Ponzi scheme. Oh, you know that Ponzi scheme? Can't we just do that? Why is the generation from the 70s always trying to come up with schemes? Fuck the schemes, just do the right thing. Follow Jesus, make the world a better place for everybody. If you have somebody in your family suffering horribly, do something to make it better. That's what I've been doing for years. When my nephew was crying because I got a ruler beating, did you think I was complaining about that I got smacked in the face with a ruler? No, I walked up to my nephew who was crying and said, don't worry, this will never happen to you. Don't worry, it's okay. I'm here. It's okay. You don't, no, I know she's crazy. It's okay though, please, it's okay. So instead of me worrying about my own health, the fact that my mother just whipped me with a ruler across the face, plastic or metal, doesn't matter. The point is that I was willing to comfort other people when I'm the one getting abused. I'm the one suffering, but yet I'm trying to help other people. That is the correct mindset because we're a society. If you think that, oh, I'll just do it on my own. Oh, I can do it on myself. I support myself. You do? Tell me. The car, did you build it? No. Did you find the formula to make a tire? No. Did you create electronics? No. Did you create electricity? No. Do you work at the power plant creating your own electricity? No. Then how the fuck did you support yourself? It sounds like there's a lot of people working in a system together to make sure we all can have a better life. But that system has been broken since 1970, 1975. About during the 70s, they started smashing it to pieces because they saw that the baby boomers and the people from 1930, 1940, 1950 were very lazy. They were willing to work at their jobs long hours, but they weren't willing to work at their government. They weren't willing to try to push this world to be a better place like their ancestors did. When there was no worker rights, what did they do? Did they just work 80 hours and say, forget it? No. They got their guns, they protested, and they gave their lives so their children could get paid a decent wage for their job. My father got paid a decent wage in the 1950s and 60s because his parents and his grandparents gave their, well, other people that they knew gave their lives. People worked really hard to make sure that we all got a better future. And then the next generation that was born in the 1930s, 1940s, some of them tried to give a better future. But by the time the 1960s and 1970s came around, people were selling out their children's future to make their own money. You see it all the time with Social Security. They make stories up at the doctors about their children so they can get a bonus from the state, and then they spend it on themselves. My kid doesn't need clothing. I'll bring him shopping when I feel like it. I need another vacation. That's what we need. Oh no, my son doesn't need to pay his rent at the program. No, we can scam them too. And then when your son is losing all his school lessons, he's getting lessons at this program in Lawrence. He has a whole thing going on and you screw it all up. Why? Why did my father screw up and make it so I couldn't go to my classes? I lost my first apartment. I didn't even get in. Why did my father steal, manipulate, and lie? Because he wanted more money in his pocket at the expense of other people. He figured, well, it's just taking money from his Social Security and putting it in my own bank account. What's the big deal? I mean, my son doesn't need it. He'll spend it on drugs. Meanwhile, it had to go to the program for rent, and he lied on paperwork, he lied to the state, and he lied to Social Security. What are the consequences? The consequences are on your son. You are making trouble for your son. You're not giving him a better